Good evening. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. A new outbreak of rioting today by Cuban prisoners in this country. In the face of the new violence, a sudden reversal of policy by President Reagan. Attorney General Meese promised late today a moratorium on the return of Cuban nationals denied residency, most of them criminals or the mentally ill. That about-facing policy followed two fiery prison standoffs that caught U.S. officials flat-footed and off guard. Bill Whitaker begins our coverage of Cuban prisoners running amok.
The violent takeover of the federal penitentiary in Atlanta began late this morning with fires and the taking of an undetermined number of hostages. Radio transmissions between authorities and inmates indicate the Cubans have control of all but one cell block and threaten further violence if authorities storm the prison. Their demands are unknown at this hour. Law enforcement agents have the facility surrounded.
We have negotiators from the institutional staff as well as the FBI that are working with us, and we have a team in there talking with them.
Outside the prison, anxious relatives awaited any word of their loved ones. There was little to comfort them. The 85-year-old Atlanta Penitentiary is the main holding facility for Cuban detainees. The 1,500 inmates here are considered the undesirables from the 1980 Mariel boat lift. Some have been held since coming ashore in the United States. Others have been arrested for crimes committed here. Most are awaiting deportation. Last Friday's agreement between the U.S. and Cuba to return 2,500 undesirables is believed to have sparked these riots. Late today, that agreement was put on hold.
Because these are men that are very depressed, nervous, thinking that they're going to be deported, and they're scared. They'd rather die here in the U.S. than they go back to Cuba.
The fires are spreading at this hour, getting closer to the cell blocks and to the area in which the hostages are believed held. Authorities say the situation is just too tense to attempt any sort of rescue operation, even for firefighters to get close enough to try to put out the blaze. Dan?
Thank you, Bill. Meanwhile, there's no end in sight for the Louisiana riots by other Cuban prisoners who have controlled the burned-out Oakdale, Louisiana facility since Saturday night. Our coverage of that takeover and the policy change it helped force starts with Bruce Hall.
Fires broke out again today at the Louisiana Federal Detention Center as SWAT teams were preparing to make their first foray into the facility. But as they were about to enter, orders were given to withdraw, leaving the prison in the hands of the rebellious Cuban inmates, who continue to hold about 28 hostages for a third night.
They always remind us that any time that we attempt to rush into the facility in any manner, armed or unarmed, that they're going to kill the hostages. That they make that very clear.
Families of the hostages have gathered at a Catholic church to pray and seek the latest news. Beryl Raines is trying to get any information about her son.
Oh, it's terrible. We just come in from Florida night before last for the holidays, and I haven't even seen him.
At least 3 of the Cuban inmates surrendered this afternoon and were quickly removed from the facility. But there are still nearly 1,000 Cubans in the prison, and authorities are no longer certain they will be able to end the uprising through negotiations.
We're prepared to do whatever we have to do, absolutely.
One thing is certain, there is so much damage already, the government will no longer be able to keep prisoners here. Bruce Hall, CBS News, Oakdale, Louisiana.
Attorney General Meese and his senior deputies made an extraordinary public appeal late today to the Cuban prison rioters, promising not to deport them, at least for now.
I have offered to declare a moratorium on the return of the Cuban nationals to Cuba. The purpose of this moratorium is to permit a full, fair, and equitable review within the laws of the United States of each individual's status with respect to his eligibility to remain in the United States.
In return for the moratorium, Meese called on the rioters to give up their rebellion and release their hostages without delay. He was not promising the Cubans they would never be deported, only fair hearings. Most of the Cubans could be deported because they committed crimes in this country. Question to the head of the Bureau of Prisons: why hadn't officials and guards anticipated the uprisings?
We thought we were on top of it. Obviously, there were some plans or some leaders in the group who had other plans, and we were not privy to them.
In Miami, families of the imprisoned Cubans boarded buses for Washington today to plead against deportation, arguing that their men had already served sentences for crimes they'd committed and in some cases had committed only minor crimes.
My husband didn't commit a violent crime. He served his sentence and now he's being retained in immigration and he has a family here.
Up to now, the government's taken the position that Cubans in detention have no constitutional right to remain in this country. Misa's action today signals a possible reversal of policy. Robert Shackney, CBS News, Washington.
In Geneva today, the heat was on Secretary of State Schultz. The start of 2 days of make or break U.S.-Soviet talks trying to nail down the arms deal that's supposed to be signed in 2 weeks at the Reagan-Gorbachev-Washington summit. Our chief European correspondent Tom Fenton reports why it is taking Schultz so long to get the deal done.
The first day of talks between Secretary Schultz and Foreign Minister Shevardnadze brought some progress, but still no agreement on key details of the draft treaty. Schultz and his Soviet counterpart spent most of the day and the evening together, but were saying very little in public.
Well, we've had good, constructive, and businesslike talks, and I think we'll leave it at that.
The differences between the two sides center on measures to prevent cheating. The treaty would eliminate more than 1,000 U.S. and Soviet medium-range missiles. Most of them are located in Europe, and both sides are insisting on the right to inspect each other's missile sites as well as missile factories for a number of years to come. Some Western experts see the difficulty in reaching agreement here as a sign of a growing power struggle in Moscow.
Had Gorbachev been a strong national leader, had he been dominant, then these decisions would have been taken already. But the fact that he's not reflects the fact that the talks are dragging on.
The recent firing and public humiliation of former Gorbachev protege Boris Yeltsin is seen as evidence that Gorbachev is losing his hold and that conservatives in the Politburo are gaining the upper hand. Observers here say President Reagan has his own problems and needs a treaty with ironclad measures against Soviet cheating to ensure ratification by the Senate. He underscored that point today.
Any treaty that I agree to must provide for effective verification, including on-site inspection of facilities before and during reduction and short notice inspection afterward.
U.S. officials say both leaders approved the basic elements of this agreement at Reykjavik. The fact that it has taken them more than a year to draw up a treaty and that 2 weeks from the agreed signing date important differences remain suggests that neither leader is negotiating from a position of strength. Tom Fenton, CBS News, Geneva.
And still to come on tonight's CBS Evening News, skinheads frightening young neo-Nazis. A homemade Max Headroom comes uninvited to Chicago television. And one of the oldest and meanest taboos is thrown for a loss in pro football.
There's a free-spirited little animal whose territory is constantly expanding. It's the Ford Bronco 2, making tracks in remote watering holes and lush feeding grounds, clawing up mountain trails with V6 power to go where the herd gathers, and Bronco 2 switches to four-wheel drive when it's on the scent of off-road fun. The Ford Bronco 2. Its territorial range is bounded only by imagination.
Now get $500 cash bonus on all new Ford Bronco 2s.
Folks, it's official. The big mouth is now the fresh mouth, thanks to new super strength Polident. It has a minty mouthwash ingredient that freshens up dentures as it cleans tough stains. Try new Polident Green for a mouth freshening clean.
We love visiting America.
Hot chili, barbecued ribs, corn fritters.
But it's jolly good you have Kaopectate.
Nothing relieves diarrhea and calms cramps faster than Kaopectate tablet formula.
Kaopectate,
the diarrhea specialist.
Announcing a dramatic breakthrough in shaving technology. The new Remington Microscreen Ultimate shaves as close as a blade and closer than any other electric shaver, or your money back. The Ultimate's exclusive beard lifter gets whiskers other shavers leave behind. And like all Remington Microscreen shavers, the first screen shaves incredibly close, the second even closer. Try the new Remington Ultimate now. It will shave you as close as a blade and closer than any other electric shaver, or your money back.
An Iranian warship blasted 2 civilian commercial freighters in the Strait of Hormuz today. Artillery fire gutted the superstructure of a Romanian ship carrying cargo for Kuwait. 3 crewmen were wounded, 2 of them critically. The rest of the crew abandoned ship as a fire blazed out of control for 5 hours. Also damaged was a cargo ship owned by a Taiwanese company. No injuries reported aboard that. Almost 40 years after the UN War Crimes Commission ended its work, the United Nations today opened its files on Nazi and Japanese war crimes. First to look at the aging documents were researchers from the U.S. Justice Department. Richard Schlesinger reports on why some Americans may have to worry about what they find.
Nazi hunters believe there is a gold mine of information hidden in the microfilmed records that were opened today at the UN War Crimes Commission. There are about 8,000 files. They name names and detail monstrous allegations against roughly 36,000 people.
And this is like prima facie evidence. And it's very important to have access to it and to follow this up immediately.
U.S. Justice Department Nazi hunters were the first to examine the files today. They are looking for people living in America with a secret Nazi past.
The number of cases we might have, the number of Nazis, as you put it, that might turn up, that's really unknowable.
Working without the UN files, it took investigators more than 30 years to track down Joseph Schwamberger, arrested last week in Argentina, suspected of killing hundreds of Jews in Poland.
He was a vicious, bloodthirsty murderer in white gloves.
White gloves?
He always wore white gloves. Not to dirt himself up with somebody's blood.
Investigators believe they would have found Schwamberger sooner if they had access to the UN files. But even with the files, investigators worry many war criminals could die before they're brought to justice for atrocities committed almost 50 years ago. Richard Schlesinger, CBS News, New York.
In Glendale, California today, authorities are investigating trouble that came with a speech by a white supremacist Sunday. Police said a crowd attacked a group of self-described skinheads, young toughs who showed up for the event. No serious injuries were reported. But Peter Van Sant explains tonight why these skinheads are the subject of increasing concern in a number of places nationwide.
They have marched alongside the Ku Klux Klan in Tennessee. They've fought in the streets near Detroit and been arrested for making terrorist threats in Los Angeles. And last month in Cincinnati, their attempts to disrupt a peace rally nearly caused a riot.
Get out, commies, get out!
They are young neo-Nazis who call themselves skinheads, and they have been tied to violent acts against Jews, blacks, and Hispanics from coast to coast.
They're violent people, and their form of entertainment is to administer violence.
While the number of skinheads across the country remains small, fewer than 1,000, investigators say their acts of violence and vandalism are on the rise.
In August, former white supremacist leader Greg Withrow was attacked by skinheads who slit his throat and broke his jaw.
They tied me to a board and drove nails through my hands.
Today, Withrow has healed from his wounds, but warns that skinheads can be killers.
They're like sharks in the water, wolves in a pack. They're extremely dangerous. They can at any time commit an act against anybody.
In Chicago, police believe skinheads were involved in recent attacks on Jewish businesses. In San Jose, California, this skinhead was arrested for allegedly threatening a black woman.
He grabbed her by the arm and said, "If you don't pay the toll, we're going to hang you in that tree there."
They have a history of engaging in acts of criminal violence, and their rhetoric is absolutely genocidal.
Skinheads have used TV interviews to spread their message, appearing on cable access channels in more than 40 cities.
We're ready to fight on the streets. We'll fight anywhere, wherever it takes.
Near Los Angeles yesterday, skinheads were running rather than fighting as more than 200 people protested a meeting of Nazi groups.
Nobody wants violence, but violence sometimes is necessary to get a point across.
No Nazis, no more! No Nazis, no more!
Investigators worry that these aggressive racists will eventually leave the youthful skinheads to join other white supremacist organizations, bringing with them a willingness to use violence to achieve their goals. Peter Van Sant, CBS News, Atlanta.
together the major symptoms of sinus complex. You need to feel better, but not drowsy. You need Sinutab 2, no drowsiness formula. Sinutab 2, so you feel altogether better and awake.
New Total Oatmeal.
I'll stick with old-fashioned Quaker Oats.
100% of the daily allowance of 9 vitamins.
Been getting that.
No, you haven't. 100% of iron.
Been getting that.
No, you haven't.
Total Oatmeal, the vitamin nutrition you thought you were getting all along.
No, you haven't.
There has always been a big Mercedes. Automobiles that have inspired dreams. The Mercedes-Benz S-Class. Nothing less than the best of every big Mercedes there ever was.
I doubted my protection no matter what I tried. See, I have a bladder control problem. But now, I found the undergarment that protects best. No doubt about it.
Attends for bladder control problems. It protects better because it's designed to keep its highly absorbent layers close to your body with gathers. Undergarments without them can gap and cause accidents.
I could do this all day. No doubt about it.
Try the best protecting undergarment. Attends for protection you can live with.
President Reagan today publicly ridiculed last week's bipartisan majority report from Congress. The report found that he was ultimately responsible for the arms for Iranians wheeling and dealing. While belittling Congress's findings, Mr. Reagan today refused to rule out the possibility that he might indeed pardon some or all of his former top aides now under criminal investigation for their roles in the secret deals.
This is a subject I have not and will not discuss at this time.
Until what point, Mr. President?
Well, just let's say sometime in the future.
Will you address the Iran counter reports, or you have not commented on that for now almost a week?
Well, maybe no comment is called for.
Senator, why is that? After months of investigation, you said that when the report was finally in, we would hear a lot from you. We wouldn't be able to shut you up, I think, with your words.
Well, maybe they labored and brought forth a mouse.
That was President Reagan's first and only direct comment on Congress's findings. Tonight, another in our series of first looks at the 1988 presidential candidates, this time Democratic Senator Paul Simon of Illinois. He's gone from being confused with the Simon he used to sing with Garfunkel to being the Democratic frontrunner in Iowa in the latest polls. CBS News chief political correspondent Bruce Morton reports on some of the reasons why, what Simon says, and what he stands for.
The band is working on Happy Days Are Here Again, the old Democratic song, the one Hubert Humphrey used. It's Paul Simon's song, too. He runs as an old-fashioned Democrat.
We need to, just up and down the line, make education much more of a priority.
More money for social programs, arms control.
I'm going to get a hold of the Soviets and say, if you're willing to stop nuclear warhead testing, we'll stop it. We're going to move it.
A tax and tax, spend and spend liberal? Simon says no. He supports a constitutional amendment to balance the budget.
I pushed for a balanced budget. I believe in it. We need old-fashioned Harry Truman, pay-as-you-go government.
He would start by cutting spending, especially defense spending. Tax increases as a last resort.
No responsible candidate can say that there absolutely cannot be tax increases.
His belief that government should be used to help solve social ills is old-fashioned Democratic. And the reason he gives for running has an old-fashioned Hubert Humphrey ring, too.
There is no position where you can do more for people than in the presidency. And I want to be of help to you.
He is not a charismatic campaigner. He shakes hands doggedly, but sometimes seems to be on automatic pilot.
Jeff, I'm happy to see you. Dave, happy to see you.
I just lost the city council race yesterday.
Ray, happy to see you. Dave, happy to see you.
Iowa Democrats are liberal Democrats. They seem to like Simon's issues, even if his speeches don't bring them to their feet. One other note. Simon is a plain man. No high-flown eloquence, no glitz, plain speech. That plainness finds an echo here. A lot of Iowans are plain people, too.
He's comfortable with these people, and they are comfortable with him, apparently.
The old-fashioned glasses and the bow ties.
I think people are ready for something other than the slick package product. I think they're ready for someone who's going to level with them.
Early polls suggest some Iowans agree that the new fashion may be the old-fashioned, old Democrat, warts, ideals, and all. He may be an improbable dreamer, but he has some followers here. Bruce Morton, CBS News, Decorah, Iowa.
Are there no longer any guarantees in life? That question might be asked today by television viewers in the Chicago area. Frank Courier reports on what they expected to watch last night and the moon over Chicago they actually saw.
Broadcast engineers at 2 Chicago television stations and thousands of viewers are still puzzled today.
The hunt is on this afternoon for Chicago's video pirate.
Late last night, as followers of the British TV fantasy series Doctor Who watched an episode entitled Horror of Fang Rock, they were startled by this. A video pirate wearing a Max Headroom mask and uttering garbled remarks flailed in front of the screen for 90 seconds. The intruder, undressed below the waist, was then spanked before the screen went blank.
There was some minor nudity involved in it, which I think was also upsetting to some viewers.
I got so upset that I wanted to bust the TV set. I really did.
The pirate also overpowered the signal at WGN-TV during Bear football highlights on the evening sportscast.
Well, if you're wondering what's happened, so am I.
Chicago TV stations transmit from atop 2 of the world's tallest buildings. Engineers say the prankster employed sophisticated microwave equipment to override the signals beamed from the station studios to the main antennas.
It takes a significant amount of power levels to achieve this kind of an interference.
FCC engineers hope to catch and prosecute the pirate the way they did a year and a half ago when a video bandit calling himself Captain Midnight interrupted an HBO satellite movie transmission from Long Island.
There's a maximum penalty of $100,000, 1 year in jail, or both, depending on whether this thing continues or not.
In a defense strategy, broadcasters here are employing new backup studio transmitter links, determined that this first-ever intrusion on Chicago TV screens will also be the last. Frank Courier, CBS News, Chicago.
The U.S. government officially reported today the federal budget deficit was $30.7 billion for the month of October, the first month of fiscal 1988. That is 20% higher than October a year ago.
My wife, every night just before bedtime, she disappears into the bathroom. Now, who knows what goes on in there? She doesn't say. Whatever it is, it doesn't take long. But you know, it makes her feel really good. See?
You can have that good, clean feeling, too, when you use powerful Effordent to remove stains and freshen dentures. Effordent, every night.
I know. My baby really changed my whole life. I don't have any time to spend on a splitting headache. I used to take aspirin or Tylenol, but today it's Advil. I learned about Advil from my doctor. It contains the same medicine as in the prescription brand Motrin. You know, just 1 Advil is as effective as 2 regular-strength Tylenol. And like Tylenol, with Advil I don't have to think about occasional stomach upset. When I get a headache, I turn to Advil. Advil, advanced medicine for pain.
There are over 500,000 doctors, and they catch colds just like you. For their own achy colds, more doctors in a nationwide survey said they'd take the formula in Dristan than the formulas in these others combined. The Dristan formula, tablets or caplets.
Where does it hurt?
Here.
For indigestion, heartburn, and gas, nobody does as much as Malox Plus. Dose for dose, it neutralizes more than any regular strength antacid and dissolves gas. Nobody does as much as Malox Plus.
A piece of sports history will be made tonight, a development that says something about race relations in our society. Eric Ingberg explains how.
Doug Williams is a black who plays a position long regarded as being for whites only. Tonight, he becomes the 3rd black quarterback to start for an NFL team in 1 week, a first. Still, black players as a group feel cheated out of a chance at the high-profile $1 million job that symbolizes leadership on the field.
I think some of the owners, some of the general managers, have to do some soul searching and think about it and look at the situation and say to themselves that there are some black quarterbacks out here that can play if we give them the same opportunity that we give everybody else.
Randall Cunningham of the Philadelphia Eagles and Warren Moon of the Houston Oilers also got the opportunity and overcame stereotypes long used against black quarterbacks, that they run well but pass poorly, or that they lack decision-making skills.
I'm glad to see it happen, but it's about time. We've had tremendous athletes that play quarterback that happen to be black, and they just haven't been given the opportunity to play.
For years, black quarterbacks coming out of college, like Keith Lee, were told they would have to switch to less glamorous positions to play in the NFL.
The explanation was that I was too good of an athlete to play quarterback, which is probably the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
As long as there's racism in our society, something we don't want to talk about very much these days, it's going to exist in sport.
In the past, some black quarterbacks had to go to Canada to play pro ball. Others simply gave up at an early age on ever getting a chance.
I feel a great responsibility to younger kids because there are a lot of younger black kids that want to play quarterback, but they're discouraged at young ages and they don't have a lot of role models to look at in the pros.
Despite recent advances, there are no role models for blacks wanting to be head coaches. In the NFL, only 13% of the assistant coaches and 14% of the front office staffs are black, and no black has been a head coach since 1920.
Nobody's willing to take the chance. They take chance on losers, but they won't take chances on blacks.
The Redskins have taken a chance on Williams. He knows the hopes of many blacks are riding on his arm.
I've always been a believer that I've always had to be a lot better than the guy behind me, at least a step ahead.
And as blacks take leadership jobs on the field, the NFL is likely to feel new pressure to give them leadership jobs now considered whites only in the front offices and on the sidelines. Eric Engberg, CBS News, Washington.
And that's the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather. See you tomorrow. Good night.
If breakfast were as it was meant to be, it would be a centuries-old balance of fruits, grains, and nuts. The breakfast Europeans called muesli. Now muesli comes to America as Kellogg's Mueslix. Oats, wheat, rice, corn, barley, raisins, dates, and hazelnuts. Kellogg's Mueslix. 5-grain or bran. What breakfast was meant to be.
Bob Hendon doesn't know it, but something else is about to interrupt his trip. Pain. As Bob's gotten older, he gets more aches and pains. That's why his next move is to Metaprin. Metaprin has the same medicine as Motrin, and nothing's proven faster for relief of body pain or any kind of pain. It's also gentler to your stomach than aspirin. Metaprin works fast when you haven't got time for the pain.
My grandma's the best. But what do you get a grandma for her birthday?
Introducing the American Express Gift Check. It lets the people you love choose a present they love. The new American Express Gift Check.
It's from my grandson.
Mom, I'm too young to get heartburn.
But you're not too young for Tums. It's rich in calcium, and our doctor said teenagers need extra calcium in their diets.
As much as their moms do?
Yes.
This is CBS.